Alright, let's dive into a story that's equal parts frustrating and eye-opening. Imagine you're a student, pouring your heart and soul into your coursework, only to find out months later that your grades were essentially made up. That's exactly what happened to a group of students at Joseph Whitaker School in Nottinghamshire, and honestly, it's a situation that raises so many questions about trust, accountability, and the pressure cooker that is the education system. Here's the deal. A teacher, Tandy L'Enfant, was found to have amended students' work and awarded grades dishonestly. Now, personally, I think what makes this really interesting is the ripple effect it had on these students. Take Samuel Goodman, for example. He's 20 now, but back then, he was a sixth form student who had completed all his coursework ahead of a kidney operation. Talk about responsibility, right? But then, out of the blue, he and his classmates were told they had to redo everything because of discrepancies in grading. Devastating doesn't even begin to cover it. What many people don't realize is how much this kind of disruption can derail a student's entire academic journey. Samuel ended up leaving university in his first year, partly because of the distrust this incident planted in him. If you take a step back and think about it, this isn't just about grades, it's about the breakdown of trust between students, teachers, and the system itself. Now, let's talk about the teacher's actions. According to the Teaching Regulation Agency (TRA), L'Enfant amended or added to students' coursework, claiming it as their own, and submitted grades that weren't supported by their work. What this really suggests is that there was a systemic failure here. I mean, how did this go unnoticed for so long? Students like Samuel and Lucy Egink raised concerns within a month of L'Enfant joining the school, but they were brushed off. One thing that immediately stands out is the power dynamic at play. These were kids, essentially, being treated like troublemakers for pointing out something was wrong. From my perspective, this highlights a bigger issue in education: the tendency to dismiss student voices when they don't align with the narrative the school wants to maintain. What's even more baffling is that one student received a grade for coursework she hadn't even submitted. How does that happen? This raises a deeper question. Were there no checks and balances in place? The school eventually referred the matter to the exam board and the TRA, but by then, the damage was done. The TRA concluded that L'Enfant's actions were deliberate and involved serious dishonesty. In her defense, she apologized, but here's the thing: an apology doesn't undo the months of stress and uncertainty these students went through. The school and the East Midlands Education Trust issued an apology, acknowledging the disruption and pressure the students faced. They also emphasized that they launched an investigation as soon as concerns were raised. But here's where it gets tricky. The students felt let down not just by the teacher, but by the school's initial response. Lucy Egink mentioned feeling like they were self-teaching because the necessary content wasn't being covered in class. A detail I find fascinating is that the misconduct panel actually concluded L'Enfant had provided adequate tuition, which, honestly, feels like a slap in the face to the students who felt unsupported. It's like the system is more interested in protecting itself than in addressing the real issues. What makes this story even more heartbreaking is the emotional toll it took. One anonymous student described feeling anger and sadness, not knowing if they'd get into university. Another wished they'd been taken more seriously when they raised concerns. If you think about it, these students were at a critical point in their lives, and instead of being supported, they were left to pick up the pieces of someone else's mistake. This isn't just about grades or coursework. It's about the betrayal of trust and the long-term impact it can have on a person's relationship with education. So what's the bigger takeaway here? Personally, I think this story is a wake-up call for the education system. It's not just about holding individuals accountable, though that's important. It's about creating an environment where students feel heard and valued. It's about recognizing that when students raise concerns, they're not just being difficult. They're trying to protect their own futures. And maybe, just maybe, it's about reevaluating the kind of pressure we put on teachers, because let's be real, the system isn't perfect for them either. But at the end of the day, there's no excuse for dishonesty, especially when it comes at the expense of students' well-being. So, here's my closing thought. Trust is the foundation of any educational relationship. When it's broken, the consequences can be far-reaching. What do you think? Have you ever felt let down by the system? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Thanks for watching.